Hey everyone, I'm Airwingmarine, and welcome back to the channel and my next Escape from Tarkov video. I'm going to do what I've kind of been getting into doing here, kind of a Tarkov market report for you guys. The last one was about a week ago, so I figured we'd jump in and get one started for the week. So without wasting any more time, let's get right after it. Okay, so I'm going to go through these things in a couple of stages here. I'm going to do kind of a bunch of obvious things, but are still worth mentioning for newer players. A list of things you shouldn't keep anymore. That you might have been worthwhile a while ago, but just aren't really worth taking out a raid anymore. Things that are often missed by players that you should keep. And then I'm going to do kind of like a forecast, if you will, kind of where I think I see them, where I think that the market's going to be going from here. So to start off with, some of the big things that you should be keeping right now are things like iridiums, the power filters, paracords, blood sets, RAM and elite pliers. These things are all pretty obvious. Now the military, these things got pretty expensive because they just added a craft for the thermals. You can craft these in the hideout now. I did a video on that. You can go check that out if you want to. It talks about that. But this instantly brought the prices of these up. And so they should stay up. They might come back down a little bit as people kind of get bored with the new craft, but they're gonna be more than they were before. Even though they were worth keeping before, now they're worth even more. They're worth getting out a raid and having the found and raid status to sell them on the flea market. Power filters. These things are insanely expensive because you need them in several things for the hideout. Primarily solar farm. To get your Bitcoin level 3, you need these. So it's drove the price of these up quite a bit. Later in wipe, these things will only be worth maybe 30 or 40,000. So again, worth keeping. Like we said, paracords are always worth keeping, but they're worth a lot now because of the sick case barter. Blood sets are still worth keeping. They've always been obvious, but I want to mention it. Keep an eye on it because they're getting into that 13, 14,000 range, and they're going to be pretty close before they're not worth keeping anymore. At least I won't be. And then elite pliers, always keep those. They're always worth good money. And RAM is going to continue to increase. I'm buying it up like crazy whenever I see it get to a certain price. And if I find any in a raid, I'm hanging on to them because in a couple of weeks, they're going to be worth 2-3 times what they're worth now. So moving on past that, we've got some things you shouldn't keep. Now, tools. Most tools are not worth keeping anymore. So if we get into tools, the set of tools here, right? So like sets of tools are barely worth keeping. Tapes aren't. Hand drills aren't. None of these things are worth keeping with the exception of things like the flat screwdriver, the elite pliers, which are right here, and metal cutting scissors. But everything else just doesn't make up enough money to be worthwhile. Now, if you're trying to build tool sets and things, you just buy them off of here and barter it. So there's not even really a reason to buy tool sets anymore, which is why they're getting cheap. Other things that aren't worth keeping anymore that were for a while are like packs of screws, light bulbs, any of the cloths. Now that you can craft them, none of those cloths are worth keeping unless you need them for a task, of course, which you need them found and raid for those 2 ragman tasks. But other than that, you can craft them. So they're not worth the per slot item of cost that they give up. Horses are not worth keeping. And soap goes back and forth. Right now, it's kind of not worth keeping. It kind of is. I always keep it because I use it in a ton of crafts, but right now it's pretty cheap. It might be actually a good time to buy it up to save it later for bleach, which will get more expensive down the road. And then lastly, the rechargeable batteries, which is sad because these things were always worth keeping. They were awesome. But with the changes to the barters on the 8R, they're not worth keeping anymore. I throw these out. If I find them, I pick them up, but they're usually one of the first things to get thrown out because they're not worth the barter anymore with the 8R. Now, on to probably what everybody wants to hear the most about is the often missed items that people don't pick up. One of the big ones right now is Shustrile. This thing is only worth money for a short while during the wipe, and when it is, it's worth a lot. So it's a 3-slot item. There's 2 of these. There's this one and then the Xenomorph. Don't keep the Xenomorph. The Xenomorph's not worth keeping. But the Shustrile is. Right now, this thing can be worth anywhere from 50 all the way up to 80 or 90,000, just depending on kind of what time of day it is. And that's because it's used to make your water collector level 3. But once everybody gets that built, these things are going to tank, and they'll tank fast. So take advantage of it while you can. Clean Wiper. Let's go pull that up real quick. This is worth a bunch of money all of a sudden. It's come back down a little bit, but I think it's still going to be worth keeping for a while because you can use it to craft keck tape now. They added that craft a little bit again. Go check out one of my other videos where I talk about that. But now that you can craft keck tape, this is what you need to craft it, so it has a use. So it's actually worth taking out a raid. Like we talked about, flat screwdrivers, obviously always worth keeping. Syringes, interestingly enough, to me, are still worth keeping. I would take these out of raid whenever I find them. They might be a little bit cheap sometimes, but they've been maintaining like the 12 to 18K range. So just save a pile of them up and sell them late at night. On top of this also goes classic matches. Now this is driven primarily by the red gunpowder craft. This is as high as I've ever seen them get, and they may even get higher. So these things are absolutely amazing. You find them in, jackets and filing cabinets and stuff. Filing cabinets are like little safes. I don't know why people don't loot them more often, because there is a ton of money to be had inside of them. And then the last thing I really have to talk about centers around barters. So specific barters are really going to drive prices up. So like right now, a lot of people are trying to get their sick cases, which is a level 3 barter with Jaeger. So everything centered around this sick case barter is getting pricey. Now, blue tape doesn't get too bad, but you can see duct tape get into the 18K range. And obviously nails and paracords are always worth keeping. But if you watch, you can sell them for sometimes twice as much as what the average price is. So just kind of keep an eye on that. Also, with the barters, kind of getting driven by this is the Holodink, which is another barter from Jaeger, which is level 2. So these things are selling for 700 to 800K right now on the flea market. So these barters are really hot. It saves you a ton of money by doing the barter. But what that does is, squash is expensive for more reasons than this, but it keeps hot rods up pricey, as well as tarcolas and herrings. These things are fantastic to keep. All food, for the most part, is worth keeping, especially now. People are burning through it so much that it's always worth a ton of money. But tarcolas and herrings can be worth huge money. We'll go look right now at what the tarcola is, but my guess is it's going to be 20 to 30, if not more. So give me 2 seconds and we'll get to the tarcola here. So you're sitting in the high 20s, but you've got all these listed in the 30s because you need to buy 5 of them for the Holodink. And when people have to spend 800 and you can barter for it for between 500 and 600, that's what they do. Then also the other barter that I'm seeing driving some interesting prices is the Hex Grid barter with Ragman. Now I think is it level 4? No, that's the Slick. It's level 3. So Ushankas are expensive. They're not quite worth keeping because they're not worth the 4 slot unless you don't have anything to put on your head. You throw them on, especially now that you can wear hearing with them. But these ski masks, the Schmaska it says here, but it's a ski mask with holes for eyes. It is worth anywhere from 12, 13, 15, 20. I've seen them as high as 30K. So you see those, throw them in your inventory. They're worth a ton of money. And then the round glasses, these things are regularly worth over 20K. So you'll see them 20, 25, 30 because this barter right here was introduced, which makes them valuable. So that's kind of it for items. Thinking about what to look forward going in the future. Green and red gunpowder are just going to continue to get more expensive. You've seen them taper off a little bit, but that's because people haven't really got into crafting a whole bunch yet. But you're going to see, just like last wipe, green and red gunpowder is going to continue to climb and continue to climb and continue to climb and just get more expensive and more expensive as people burn through them. So save up your components to craft those. Green, you don't have to, but like red, saving up matches when you find them, saving blue gunpowders, things like that are all worth keeping because of those crafts. Ushankas, like we already talked about, they're going to continue to get more expensive because as people get to that flappy cap quest, the setup, you need the Ushanka for that, to do that task. It's one of the spec gear items. Again, also being used for the Hex Grid. Store up your Cordura. You can see here, I got lots of stuff I'm storing. I'm storing anything I can get my hands on that I know is going to be worth a ton. Cordura, filters. Whenever I see this stuff get cheap, I buy it because Cordura is used for a couple of good barters later in the wipe, level 4 barters with Ragman. So that once people get there and start using those barters for like slicks and ACPCs, you're going to see Cordura go up. Last wipe it was selling for 60 to 80K at the end, and I imagine we'll see that maybe a little bit less because you can craft it now, but it's still going to be pretty expensive. Graphics cards. I believe graphics cards are going to continue to go up. They seem like they've leveled off at about 800K, but all it takes is a small change in demand, and you could see these go to $1 million. I honestly believe you could. Will we? I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm kind of basing it off of what we've seen in last wipes based on the value of the Bitcoin. But for me, I'm selling every graphics card I get. As soon as I get it, I sell it. Sometimes I'll wait till I'll put them in my Bitcoin farm till I have 2 or 3, and then I'll take them back. I'll take those 3 out and then sell those as a pack, just because they can sit up on the flea market for a little bit longer. But eventually, we're going to see them come back down, and probably into the 500 to 600K range, if I had to guess. And so that's where I'm at with graphics cards. That being said, any change in Bitcoin prices, like if the Bitcoin price tanks, it will do the same thing. If Bitcoin prices go to 600,000 or 700,000, then you'll see graphics cards follow as well. It just pumps a ton of money into the economy. It gives people more money to spend, and it makes what people are willing to spend to get more Bitcoins go up as well. Kind of basic economics, I suppose. And then LEDXs. If you pick those up, if you're farming those, sell them as you get them. Don't sit on them. We're not going to see LEDX prices like we did last wipe. There's just not the same demand, because now the items or the tasks that you needed them for to turn in are now found in raid, so you don't buy them. So there isn't the demand to buy them on the market anymore. So you will see those things continue to get cheaper and cheaper. They'll be primarily driven by barters, for the cases and stuff now. That'll keep them buoyant in probably the 800 to 900 range. But if you're getting 900, you're doing pretty good. And I think that's about it, guys. I think that wraps up this whole video. I hope it was helpful. I hope you guys like this. I enjoy doing these. It's fun to dig into these things. Well, that wraps up the video. I hope you guys liked it. If so, make sure you hit that like button. It helps out a ton with the YouTube algorithm. Also, if you haven't yet, subscribe so you see when new content shows up. I stream on Twitch most weeknights, so come by and say hi there if you want to. And we have a Discord full of chilled, laid-back people who love to help out and answer questions, as well as brag about some of our awesome loot. So the link for that's down in the description too, so you can join there if you want to. Lastly, as always, thank you guys for watching the video. Your support is amazing and helps out in more ways than you guys can imagine. So with that, we'll wrap it up, and we'll see you in Tarkov.